You're listening to the Journey Podcast. Maybe the term gut-brain connection sounds like a foreign language to you, but could it be the key to mental and physical well-being? Find out more in today's episode. Hi, I'm Petra Brunbauer, and with decades of experience with sadness, pain, anxiety, and stress, I finally figured out how to leave all that behind. And this podcast shows you how to break free permanently so you can reclaim your sanity and find the self-esteem and energy to go after the life you desire. With real talk about mental health, holistic healing, and the tough journey of coming out the other end. This is the Journey Podcast. Welcome to today's episode. Struggling with major digestive issues can be painful, exhausting, and downright frustrating when no answers become available for years and years. Since the symptoms are likely physical, it may not be obvious that the connection could actually be linked to your nervous system. Demi Fair discovered the gut-brain connection for herself because of her lifelong health issues, and she believes that realigning the nervous system and processing trauma could be the key in healing digestive problems. If we consider a whole body, holistic healing approach, this definitely makes sense and could explain why so many people continue to suffer with digestive issues without finding relief. In this episode, we explore the gut-brain connection with Demi Fair. After a lifelong struggle with chronic digestive issues, anxiety, and obsessive thinking, as a teenager, Demi began a deep healing journey to explore everything she could to find freedom from her chronic symptoms. This brought her into studying nutrition, gut healing, and a wide variety of healing modalities. While these were extremely helpful, it wasn't until she began to work with her nervous system and body that true, lasting healing began. From there, Trust Your Gut was born. Her approach blends the foundation of her background as a nutritional therapist with her training as a somatic experiencing practitioner. This is where holistic health, microbiome balancing, and gut healing meets nervous system regulation and processing trauma. Demi helps those struggling with chronic digestive and mental stress heal their gut-brain imbalances through holistic nutrition and nervous system regulation so they can trust their body, feel empowered in their healing, and experience the true freedom they desire. Unlike most gut healing methods that focus solely on strict diet and supplement protocols, she uses nutrition to support the body while working to bring the nervous system into balance from unprocessed stress, trauma, and emotions so clients can resolve their symptoms and restore resilience. Here is my interview with Demi Fair. Hi, Demi. It's so great to have you on the podcast. I've been looking forward to getting to chat with you because the gut-brain connection is such an interesting space for holistic healing. Welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I just love what you're doing with this podcast. It's like a hub for so many different modalities that people can come to and find out what works for them in their healing. And I really appreciate that's something you're offering to the world. So I'm excited to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. I am super excited that you're here too. So yeah, let's get right into it. And do you want to tell us a bit about yourself and how you got into doing what you do now?
Yes, absolutely. So I have struggled with digestive issues all my life. I had them pretty much since I was an infant. And a lot of that was struggling with constipation. And I don't remember a lot from that time as an infant, but I do remember being younger and having a ton of bathroom anxiety, like not being able to be comfortable and relaxed enough to go to the bathroom anywhere that wasn't my house. I remember times when I was so constipated that my mom and grandma had to give me suppository laxatives. Those are the ones that go right up your bum every day for a while. And that was a really painful, intense, and traumatizing experience for me as a kid.
Yes.
And during this younger time too, I remember having anxiety. Like my mom thought that there might be something going on with me. She actually took me to a child psychologist because I would get so intense about things. I don't really have these memories, but this is what she shared with me, and was just very, very sensitive, a really sensitive kid. And I would have some obsessive tendencies where I felt like I needed to check all the doors and blinds before going to bed and pray every night before I went to sleep, or all the bad things would happen to my family and my house that I was afraid of. And just remember experiencing obsessive thinking at a young age where I just felt my mind spiral and spiral and spiral.
Mhm.
So these things came with me throughout my life. And when I was a teenager, things really got bad. Like my constipation was really horrible. I'd go many days without going to the bathroom. So therefore, I had a ton of stomach pain. I felt extremely bloated. I looked pregnant every day. And that was really difficult for my mental health because at the same time, my anxiety was manifesting and my obsessive thinking was manifesting as disordered eating and body image issues.
Mhm.
Throughout my life, these things just kind of kept following me and manifesting in different ways. And I would struggle tremendously with indecision as well, and FOMO, like fear of missing out. And it just kind of kept the obsessive thinking and anxiety spiraling and ruminating and overanalyzing. And then I kind of fell into depression for a while as a teenager. So it all just kind of came to a head then, to the point where I was like, I need help. And I was going to doctors, and all they would do is prescribe me laxatives or psyllium husk or tell me to take this laxative every day. And I just felt like that wasn't the real solution.
Mhm.
And I was really lucky to discover nutrition at a pretty young age, like 18, and begin to find the power of food as a way to support my digestive issues and find healing. And that was kind of my first foot into this world, and found a lot of relief. And that worked really well for a long time until I continued to have digestive issues throughout college and later in my 20s. That led me deeper into nutrition, deeper into holistic health, and a bunch of healing arts. And I tried pretty much all the gut healing diets and modalities that I could find, and a lot of different things like Reiki and craniosacral therapy and massage and ecstatic dance and plant medicine and Vipassana retreats, and really, you name it, like probably explored it. And everything was really supportive, beautiful, helpful to my healing journey and got me to kind of the next level. But I still, up until this day, I'm in the best place I've ever been with my digestion and kind of my gut brain interaction. But a couple years ago, I realized what was the root issue for me, and I started to explore that. And then that's kind of where my business Trust Your Gut was born, was combining the modality of nutrition and holistic health with nervous system regulation, and really understanding the gut brain connection and
Mhm.
what's going on there that would be keeping someone like me stuck in these chronic symptoms.
Wow, what a story. Thank you so much for sharing that. I
Yeah.
feel like that's so traumatizing, and you spent so much time trying to figure that out, and I can just imagine, when you're a young kid, that those experiences, they will really scar you and cause you a lot of anxiety and mental health issues, because that is traumatizing what you went through. I'm very glad that you have found the root cause of what was going on. And we will talk about that also a little bit later. But first, I'm really curious, what is the gut brain connection? Like, what is that you refer to when you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, our gut, which is our digestive system, right, is connected to our brain, which is the main component of our central nervous system. And they're connected by a bundle of nerve fibers. And one of the main nerves in this bundle is the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve travels from our brainstem, and it connects to every organ along the way as it goes down into the gut and penetrates the gut wall. and it's the longest nerve in our body. There's also communication happening between the gut and the brain via the bloodstream by neurotransmitters and different chemical messengers like that. But most of the communication is happening between the gut and the brain via the vagus nerve and this bundle of nerve fibers. This communication is happening 24/7 all the time, and it goes back and forth. And one main thing about this is that our gut has its own nervous system, and this is called the enteric nervous system. We refer to it also as the gut brain or the second brain. And the reason it's called that is because it has the largest cluster of neurons in our body besides the brain. And it actually has more neurons in the body than in our spinal cord. It's about 200 to 600 million neurons. So this own nervous system of the gut is constantly picking up information from all the cells and the neurons in the gut, from the microbiome, the bacteria that live there, from neurotransmitters that are there, from the food that we eat, and communicating that information up to the brain. The brain takes in that information and then communicates back to the gut, which then adjusts the function of the gut, and it creates this loop that's in continual communication. So they're constantly influencing each other.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
I'm already learning so much, and we're just a few minutes in. So, wow. So, when you talk about the vagus nerve and how it connects to all of the organs, I can start to see where you're going with this. But why is the gut-brain connection so important to your overall health?
Well, I see it as the foundation of our mind-body connection. And something I think has been a problem with Western medicine's approach to health is that it's really separated the mind and body. Like, you go to a psychologist or a therapist to deal with your mental health, and there's no conversation around what's going on in your physical body, traditionally. And when you go to a doctor to work on things going on in your physical health, there often isn't conversation about what's going on in your mental health, traditionally. Luckily, things are becoming more integrated and holistic in many ways. But in traditional Western medicine, we've really separated the two. And they're absolutely intricately connected. And the gut-brain connection is the prime example of that. When we see just how interconnected those two systems are and how vital they are for the health of our whole body, like the health of our brain and our central nervous system is one of the most important systems to the health of our whole body, as is the digestive system. And that's something that is still in its infancy in research and in medicine. But I think most people now have understanding how important gut health is and how important the microbiome is, just how involved it is in so many different processes in our body. That's one of the main reasons. It's the foundation of the mind-body connection and that communication between the two. The vagus nerve is also picking up information from a bunch of different organs and communicating that up to our brain. And in fact, 80 to 90% of that information is coming from the body to the brain, and only 10 to 20% is coming from the brain to the body. So there's a lot of really important information that our brain needs from the body. And the other part of this is that this is so deeply integrated into our autonomic nervous system, which controls our fight, flight, or freeze response, and also our ventral vagal or parasympathetic state. So that's the state we want to be in to feel really our most resilient to stress and most connected and calm and nourished in our body, where our immune system's functioning well, our digestive system's functioning well. And so this communication pathway via the vagus nerve, that is the main component of that parasympathetic state. So that, along with the enteric nervous system, which is one of the main components of the autonomic nervous system, it's all so deeply interconnected into our nervous system, which also controls so much of how we respond to our environment and to stresses and our overall health and well-being.
Yeah. Wow. Really, everything is interconnected, as you said. And I can see how if one of those pieces kind of misfires or gets maladjusted, how that could really affect everything else in your body and even your mental health.
Absolutely.
There's obviously this really great importance to have those things flowing properly and have them working properly. And so that, I suppose, is where the nervous system regulation comes in. And what is that exactly? And how does that affect digestive and mental health?
Yeah. So When we hear about nervous system regulation, we might think that that means like, oh, we're calm, we're chill. But that's not what regulation is. Our nervous system, our autonomic nervous system, is a brilliant part of our body. Its main job is to keep us safe. So it's constantly looking out for threat and for anything that might be a threat to our survival or our body, our well-being. And so being regulated means that we're able to navigate these different states of our nervous system in an appropriate way. So to explain this further, I'll lay out three of the main states of our nervous system. We have the ventral vagal, which is the place where we're going to feel calm. We're going to feel connected to ourselves and others. That's where our digestion is optimal. That's where we feel the most resilient, right? That's kind of that nice, relaxed place that a lot of us would like to live in our day-to-day life.
Yes.
Now, when we have a threat or when there's something that demands us to meet a need, it's not always a negative thing. It's not always like a negative threat or a negative stress. When we are doing high intensity exercise, when we're giving a speech, when we're meeting a work deadline, we're going to be activating a bit into our fight or flight or our sympathetic state. And this is where we're going to be just more prepped for action in our body. This is great because we need to go into this sympathetic state many times throughout our day to meet certain needs. Now, what happens when there's dysregulation is often that we're going into sympathetic and we're spending too much time there. We're kind of getting stuck in on, and that's where we're going to experience more anxiety, hypervigilance, maybe more irritation, frustration. And something's going on in that person's system that is preventing them from being able to go into that sympathetic activation and then come back down into that ventral vagal rest and digest state. When we're trying to regulate the system, we're wanting it to be like this nice undulating wave. We're able to get into an activation and then we're able to discharge and recover after stress. We have more resiliency in the system and we're not getting stuck in on and spending too much time in that state. Now, what can happen when we spend too much time in fight or flight, or if a threat comes, a stressor comes, as often as it does with a traumatic event, where we couldn't fight or we couldn't flee, we couldn't meet that threat, we might go into what's called the dorsal vagal. That is our freeze response. That is where we shut down because our body's preparing for death. And it's where we might dissociate and we experience a lot more depression and disconnection and fatigue and apathy and hopelessness. So we also don't want to get into that place where we get kind of shut in off. Now, it has its purpose. It's a beautiful evolutionary design in our system to keep us safe. And again, nothing's bad about going into these states. We just want to be able to healthfully come out of them once the stress or threat has been removed. So that's what regulation is aiming to do, is to build more resiliency in our system and maybe needing to reteach our system that we're safe and that we're able to come out of these states and come back into that ventral vagal state.
Wow, what an interesting connection. I'm starting to sort of see the pieces falling into place now, how that connection works on the physical and the mental body and how that is all connected together. Wow. So when you told us your personal story, you also told us that you found the root cause of what was happening with yourself. And so out of that, what is your specific approach now to healing the gut brain?
Yeah, so I spent so much time focused on what I was eating. And I just thought, well, maybe I need to do another elimination diet. Maybe there's something I haven't cut out yet. Maybe I just need to do better, eat cleaner. Maybe I haven't found the right supplement yet. Maybe I need to meditate more. And again, as I mentioned in the start, like all really beautiful, nourishing things. But I became very hyper-focused on, well, nutrition is the answer. Well, it was when I started to really understand my nervous system and look back at my childhood and see the nervous system responses that I was in and the patterns that I'd started to be in all my life and how that actually affected my gut and my brain and my gut-brain connection and my overall body and health is when I really the light bulb went off. And I saw that as, oh, I can eat as healthy as I want and take all these supplements, and I can even do yoga and meditation. But if I'm staying stuck in this fight or flight response and I'm not addressing that, then these things are only going to do so much. Because we are not going to digest well when we're in a fight or flight. Digestion gets shut off in that state.
Yeah.
And for me, once I started to work with my nervous system on a deeper level, and I finally went and sought out therapy for the first time in my life and started to utilize different modalities and become really aware of my own nervous system responses, that's when things started to really shift. And then I got a little bit deeper into working with some of my past trauma and my childhood wounding and intergenerational trauma, things that were passed down to me. That's when I started to really feel things shifting. And that's where the approach was born, because I see that this foundation of nutritional therapy is really important, right? There's often going to be some level of physical imbalance that happens if we've been in nervous system dysregulation a lot of our life. And if we've had chronic symptoms, there is something in the physical body that needs to be addressed. And for me, that's usually doing microbiome testing and seeing what's actually going on in the microbiome, and then supporting that and helping people to feel better. But that's only one piece of the puzzle, right? We need to also be looking at this nervous system piece and the patterns that have been carried through someone's life, their beliefs, what maybe has been traumatic to them in their life, what has been passed down. And that's kind of the deeper healing work that we're doing. So I blend both of those things, bring the foundation of nutritional therapy, and we can help the body in that way, depending on what is going on for that individual person, and just learn how to support our microbiome best, learn how to support our gut health best, really understand how the digestive process works and what we can do in our day-to-day to support that part, while also learning how our own nervous system works, what it feels like to be in dysregulation, what helps us get into regulation, and then working with the nervous system to process trauma and to bring it into more resiliency. And that's sometimes going to be deeper work one-on-one together in somatic experiencing. And sometimes that's also bringing a bunch of different resources forward for someone, so in their day-to-day life, they can build more resiliency in their nervous system.
Wow. I love that you're using your personal experience to now bring these amazing things to people who are going through what you were going through and really need this kind of help and guidance. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah.
Could you go over some of your programs and services that you offer so that our listeners can get an idea of how they could connect with you in their healing journey?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thing I'm most excited about right now is I am preparing to offer a group program for the first time. I'm calling it the Gut Brain Healing Toolkit. And that's because I want those who participate to walk away with this amazing toolkit that they can utilize in their healing.
Wow.
And this is a 5-month program with a group that will be live. And it walks people through everything about the gut-brain connection, the vagus nerve, the enteric nervous system, everything about the entire digestive process, the microbiome, our nervous system, and how to regulate our nervous system, trauma, and how to process trauma, inner child work, and connecting to intuition. So it's really like the most holistic foundational approach to the gut brain healing that I have found. And within it, there's a ton of practical tools and exercises that I have created or adapted that I want to offer, so that in each section of the training and of the program, they're able to find what works for them and walk away with this toolkit of really understanding their nervous system, their gut-brain connection, how it all works. I really try to offer it in a way that's backed by science and studies, but easy to digest, and then practical tools so that people can bring those things into their life and feel really empowered in their healing, right? Like, okay, I don't feel so disheartened when these symptoms come up or so helpless. Like I understand what's going on in my body now. I understand where it came from and I know what to do moving forward. And that to me is true healing when we are able to really embrace all of ourselves, even these things that are so difficult and cause a lot of suffering, and be able to say, it's okay that this is happening and coming up. I now have the tools to navigate this. I know that I'm going to be okay. Like we have resiliency now.
Mm.
So that's what's in the works right now. And I'm really excited to offer that.
Yeah.
I've been working one-on-one with clients for the past year, and that is something I will still be offering moving forward, but it will become a little more limited. But
Mhm.
yeah, always love working one-on-one with folks. It's such a deep dive together.
Yeah. Wow, that sounds like such an empowering program that you're putting together. And definitely will stay tuned for when that launches.
Mm-hmm.
Demi also has her own podcast, as she mentioned, called The Trust
Yes.
Your Gut. And you can listen in from your favorite podcast provider. And we will be linking to all of Demi's offerings in the show notes as well. So be sure to check those out for all the links on how you can connect with her directly and how you can work with her. And we will also be linking to her new program when it's available. And this has been another incredible episode. And I really hope our listeners have enjoyed the journey into the gut brain connection as much as I have. I have learned so much in this episode that I didn't know anything about. And it has been so fantastic chatting with you, Demi. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and giving me an opportunity to just talk about what I'm so passionate about. And I hope it reaches the people who need to hear it.
Yeah, absolutely. It has been my pleasure. Thank you so much and take care.
You too.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen in. If you enjoy the Journey podcast, please subscribe, share on social media, and leave us a review. And be sure to get your copy of our brand new ebook called Break Free. Sending you love and courage, and see you next week. Until then, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and the Journey blog.